Yes, I did ask Zuki too, but you may go. I want to stop this Eastern Cape photo business. Ai, Helen, julle kan nou ook nog nie so posie. En jy weet, mens hy weet dit is 'n dik stem. Nou hoor ons haar die hele pad. Ons wag net ons gaan net so 'n paar minute vir speaker om in te kom. Are you right? I don't think we can expect most of the people maybe have left and others will be late. So I don't think we can expect the full house. Whilst we are waiting for the speaker, why can't we have the AU anthem that we never sang at the beginning of this event? Yeah, see me? Does the sound people have the AU anthem? Ja, stuur 'n WhatsApp. Okay. Kan chair of chairs asseblief hulle se members kry? Kan chair of chairs asseblief hulle se members kry? Jomo se members is hier so. Jomo se members is hier so. Jono se Julle dink seker ek is nie serieus nie. Daai anthem gaan gesing word. Julle dink seker ek is nie serieus nie. Ek is baie serious, chair of chairs. Honorable delegates, good morning. Imelang. Huh? Huh? Timelang. Otherwise, Northwest is not here if I don't hear that. Olweni. Sanbonani. We tried. We are halfway there, Judy. I don't think you know 5. I at least know about 6. Absheni. All of those. And goeiemorgen. We are just giving a few minutes for the speaker to arrive, but I thought if we start later than 10:30, those that have flights will possibly have a problem being in time for the flights. So I think we need to start with the final day of our summit, something that we have for maybe 2 years ago already resolved on to have as a speakers forum. Can someone borrow me a program? Please, borrow me your program. Thank you very much. So I do have the program here in front of me because I sent my bag out for someone to use my laptop, but unfortunately I didn't take the program out. So whilst we are waiting for speaker, can we rise for a moment of silence? That much we can do. Can we rise for a moment of silent prayer? You must put the meditation on. So, let me tell you a small joke. When we were started in the legislature in Northern Cape, our speaker loved to pray, but there was a prayer that Sia Kubongoza, to start like that. And every time when he said, can we rise for a prayer, someone starts Sia Kubongoza. I think let's just observe a moment of silence for prayer or meditation. Thank you very much. I will request the Speaker of Free State to join me on stage. I've joined me on stage. I was supposed to be on the program. As I not call my panelists, I also want a panel. Morning, Speaker. No, it's fine. We were just giving a few minutes. The boss is never late. You must know that. she's always delayed. Thank you very much. And I think that actually just give us the cue to start. We don't expect on the last day that everyone will be here. The attendance was above average. We should say that. And thank you for that, for the members that took this summit very serious. And we took it very serious indeed. Like I said, 2 years ago, we resolved that in the penultimate year of our term, we will have a gender summit to make a reflection on what have been happening ever since 1994 with regards to issues of gender transformation and gender mainstreaming. And how have the gender landscape changed? That is what we have decided about 2 years ago. And we are here today. And in actual fact, we didn't think the time will actually leave us so fast like that. But we had generally, we decided that this term, our term, is it the 6th or the 7th or the 8th Parliament, Honorable Frolic? Is it the 6th or the 7th or the 5th? What Parliament? The 6th. I just told Speaker SALS next year I will be 60. So I'm allowed to forget sometimes to stand with my phone in my hand and ask the children, where's my phone? Where's my phone? All over the place. I'm allowed. So I'm also allowed to forget that this is the 6th Parliament whilst we are reading the documents of the 5th Parliament. So Speaker of the National Assembly, our chairperson, which I don't see at the moment, also the Deputy Speaker, speakers of provincial legislation, our 2 House chairpersons. Now I said to Honorable Frolic, I want to change this title of House chairpersons, but he felt that is his designation. So no one must change his designation. They are House chairpersons. But I think we should change it. And I want you to come up with ideas at the Speakers Forum how we can change the title of House chairpersons. And all members present, ladies and gentlemen, particularly the members of civil society, they have really proven to be a very dependable ally, particularly in the struggle for gender mainstreaming and intensive gender equality programs. So we want to, I really hope no one is left out. But let us say distinguished guests. That means you are properly acknowledged. Also our foreign guests. We shouldn't forget about them. We call you foreign guests because you are coming from beyond the borders of South Africa and from the diaspora. So what I noticed during this summit is that there is a complete change in form and substance in what we have been doing. So there is also to review the strides that particularly legislatures have taken in pursuit of implementing the recommendations of the high-level panel and the NSP. The Speakers Forum have commissioned this, what we call a sector gender summit, And we also have outlined the purpose that we want to develop a long-term vision, and that we also want to make sure that there is a clear role for the South African legislative sector in the gender transformation landscape. I am sure that we have been able to take stock of what has transpired, what was our achievement since 1994, and some of the issues that actually came out yesterday was this discussions in the panels that actually show that there is a lack of gender disaggregated data. There is equity, but there is not necessarily a mainstreaming for gender equality. That there is really a weak translation of gender equity commitments into fiscal commitments. When we spoke about gender responsive budgeting, but also planning, because we can't budget what we haven't planned for. So there is a lack of that. And also that the gender discourse have become events driven. We have not necessarily really totally succeeded in mainstreaming the issues of gender. And maybe we need to budget for training and make sure that the decision makers are capacitated to be able to understand issues of gender and how to analyze gender information. And that is also be able to analyze the impact of our gender programs on the work that we generally do. I think we reached consensus that we need to have a social compact and a commitment to re-engineer systematic and institutional arrangements across the three spheres of government to enable gender-sensitive good governance, policy redesign, planning, budgeting, and implementation practices. And I think we agreed that even within the civil society movement, that we will have to make sure that there is capacity put in programs on gender mainstreaming, and so that the role players may have a common understanding on the importance of what we are trying to achieve. Yesterday, we resolved that Parliament must develop appropriate stakeholder engagement strategies and to make sure that policy development is no longer limited to government, but rather is an increasingly multi-stakeholder effort, which therefore necessitates Parliament to forge strong partnerships with civil society as well as the private sector to realize transformation for gender landscaping. We spoke about the role of the Auditor General, but we also spoke about the role of planning, monitoring, and evaluation, the process of making sure that we reach gender mainstreaming. I think through the various deliberations, we have noted that the struggle for gender equality is characterized by different phases with different emphasis. And I just want to quote Frantz Fanon when he states that each generation will approach the revolution in the context of their moment in history. Fanon insists that praxis must be rooted in the temporal, that each generation must confront the living reality of its own situation, accept its own call to battle, gather its own weapons, and in the vortex of struggle, from within the collective mutation of popular political empowerment, produce its own truth. But while we do confront each situation straddling infinity with its prospects for new secrets to be revealed and nothingness, which condemns us to absolute responsibility for our choices in the face of the void, we do not step into that situation from nowhere. And that is why when we address the issues of partnerships, we reflected on the historical perspective as to how we, with the gender ideology or the gender discussion came about. Because historically people get together and say that if we don't fight for a more equal society, equality will not come on its own. We need to take responsibility. What do we want to see? What do we want to do? And in saying that, I just also want to emphasize one thing that came out on the first day is the fact that we shall not allow the spirit of Victoria Griffith to die. That is one of the things that came out. On the second day, yesterday, one of the people say, as a South African nation, we need to embark on a healing process. Make sure that we build social cohesion, equality in society, and that women and girls should be safe in the places where they live. In saying that, I will continue to call on the Speaker of the Orange Free State to Orange Free State. When we went to Free State, we made our hair orange. Don't you? Sorry. Free State will not be very happy to hear they are orange, but you can see we've got orange hair. It's because we came through the Free State to Zululand. Picker boys. Thank you. I don't want everyone to be so serious, but we also must take serious what we are doing here. So then now, Honorable Sifuba know that I usually say the first Sifuba that I know was an old man of Uppington, so I suspect she's from Uppington. So, so we will now call on the Speaker of the Free State Provincial Legislature, Ms. NB Sifuba, to do the consideration of 2023 South African Legislative Sector Gender Summit recommendations for the 7th term. Over to you, Honorable Sifuba.
Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Chairperson of the NCOP, who's not here this morning, have left already, Honorable Deputy Speaker of the NA in absentia as well, Honorable Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP, our two House Chairpersons of the NA and that of NCOP, the chairpersons of different committees of parliament and legislatures, honorable members who are delegates, civil society, and all our guests, Honorable Speaker of Mauritius and Honorable Deputy Speaker of the Kingdom of Lesotho. Good morning. I'm going to present the recommendations for SALS Gender Summit that has been held over the past 3 days. The introductions were held, the engagements were held for the past 2 days, have solidified the Speaker's Forum resolution of reviewing the strides that the legislative sector has made in pursuit of implementing the recommendations of the high-level panel. This is evidenced by the robust panel discussions which heightened the gender-responsive and transformational agenda that the South African legislative sector seeks to implement. I'm bothered by this thing. I hope you can hear me. Discussions over the past few days highlighted the structural barriers that impede gender transformation and cemented the importance of collaboration with all relevant stakeholders. Discussion reiterated the need for intentional planning, intentional policy making, deliberate and responsive oversight that ensures monitoring and evaluation of enforceable targets. The hosting of Gender Summit is a critical component that will inform part of the building blocks aimed at facilitating the economic transformation for the benefit of women, reducing gender discrimination, promoting gender mainstreaming, and eradicating gender-based violence. Following suit from the 10 topical themes that were highlighted from the first session, the following recommendations are being put forward. The first one, intersectionality. The intersectional lens is required to address gender mainstreaming for women, girls, LGBTQI+ persons, and gender non-binary persons. A need to implement transformational programs for women, especially rural women and girls, is critical for economic transformation. Number 2 is gender mainstreaming. Gender mainstreaming should be adopted in planning, budgeting, and other processes of the legislatures. Number 3, the legislation and public policy. Structural barriers to gender equality impose constraints on women in balancing work and family responsibilities. Targets should be designed to eliminate these barriers to ensure women's full participation in the economy. This requires the legislatures to engage in legislative reform that seeks to address this. Number 4, on budgets. Legislatures must oversee the maximization of targeted financing to accelerate the achievement of gender-responsive planning, budgeting, monitoring, and evaluation. To ensure the above, the South African legislative sector needs to ensure that the Auditor General audits the financial analysis of departmental votes using gender indicators. On number 5, oversight over government service delivery. The summit commits to taking action at local, provincial, and national level to strengthen the normative and legal frameworks for poverty eradication and to end gender-based violence and to eradicate gender discrimination on the whole. The summit commits the legislative sector to strengthen the capacity, resources, and the authority of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, that is NSP. Specifically, the legislative sector should adequately capacitate, resource, and support overseeing the implementation of the NSP. The summit recognizes the violence against women in all its forms. The summit recognizes that violence against women in all its forms has serious consequences for the quality of life of women and LGBTQI+ persons, including the fact that it serves as a major impediment to women's economic transformation and their social and economic development. It commits the legislatures to accelerating change in this regard through vigorous oversight in relation to violence against women and LGBTQI+ groups, and to ensure that budgets for expenditure in this regard are ring-fenced. The legislative sector will seek to ensure that government budgets prioritize care work in relation to violence against women and that this is adequately provided for. This includes enacting legislation that provides a regulatory framework for minimum services for post-rape care. It commits the sector under the leadership of Parliament to engage with the executive on the need for legislative reform that has emanated from the work of the task teams assigned to drive the implementation of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. Ensure the utilization of gender-responsive oversight tools to monitor the development and implementation of strategies and plans to address issues relating to equality and justice in South Africa. This should include the development of an oversight plan by the sector to guide oversight of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. On public participation, the summit acknowledges that men and boys must be encouraged to take an active part in and to engage fully as agents and benefits for change in realization of women's economic transformation and the eradication of gender-based violence. Summit recognizes that civil society organizations have a role to play in ensuring the realization of gender rights and commits the legislative sector to engaging with them and ensuring their participation in legislative and oversight processes. Government has recently adopted a policy framework for gender-responsive budgeting. The gender-responsive planning, budgeting, monitoring, and evaluation framework. The sector should look into consulting on the ability of this policy to address the gender-responsive budgeting and to revise the policy accordingly. Number 7, on internal processes of legislatures, the summit encourages the legislatures to develop national action plans to oversight of the attainment of gender equality insofar as women's economic transformation and oversight over the NSP on gender-based violence is concerned. These should have clear targets and benchmarks against which progress should be measured, and this should be determined at sector level to ensure alignment. Legislatures should also take into account when intersectionality of gender with other forms of identity such as race, class, sexual orientation, age, when measuring impact of service delivery. Increase the awareness and acknowledge of members of parliament and provincial legislatures on gender mainstreaming by implementation of training programs for effective oversight over government implementation of gender programs. The legislative sector to develop a stakeholder engagement plan and partnership framework that includes all sectors, including government at all levels, business and community-based organizations to advance gender mainstreaming in South Africa. Thank you. Legislatures should consider internal processes and systems that ensure gender-biased oversight. Clarity on the role of COGTA vis-à-vis legislatures in overseeing gender-responsive planning and execution at local government must be investigated, and instruments for ensuring effective oversight of monitoring and performance at local level, local government must be addressed. On women and economy, the summit acknowledges the continued gender gaps in labor force participation and leadership, wages and income, occupational segregation, social norms, and workplace culture. In order to address the above, the sector should take lessons on systematic transformation of the gender landscape from other sectors. And, of course, state institutions. The summit must also consider the review of the South Africa's economic system that impedes the development and empowerment of women and girls by conducting public hearings on the development of appropriate economic systems. Number 9, how can the sector improve upon their gender mainstreaming activities? The need to develop a long-term vision and strategy for the legislative sector on gender transformation, inclusive of women, girls, gender, non-binary persons, and LGBTQI+. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Speaker Siphoba. We would have loved to have the, can it please be projected so that you can just go through it, not point by point, but for members to agree this is the outcome of our discussions in the summit. So whilst it is being flagged, we would love someone to propose that we agree. This is what we have discussed, or if there is anything more that we feel that should be part of the recommendations. Yes, please. Can we continue? Can we have a mic there? Okay. Okay, thanks. Can we have the mic? You may speak if you have that voice. For recording purposes, they would love you to use the mic, please. Any other indication? I've already have Ms. Prax, yes, okay. Is it you, Pizza? Okay. Thank you. It's fine. Let me just take this for, I told you about my age, so I have seen you.
Good morning to the summit. I think on a personal note and on a collective note, one should not disagree with what has been presented. It's actually the feeling and what was represented. But I just want to indicate two things. One, there is a mention of the economic system. Is it not so we should include the education system? It should be gender responsive, because there are a lot of people raised yesterday about schooling and other, how the gender imbalances and how this is being created. So probably if we are talking and mentioning about economic system, we need to add also a gender responsive education system, which is not an easy thing to start today or tomorrow, but at least the legislature can be a focal point of doing that. The second one is that I did not see an explicit categoric empirical sound of the civil society there, because civil society yesterday said that they need to be in every stage of the participation. So probably a statement there, the summit acknowledges that it's important that civil society should not be part of the tail end, but in the planning stages, because they clearly indicated that they are not being considered. Thank you.
I think the civil society one can maybe emphasize, but it's definitely there. Can we first give to Bita before we come to this side? Honorable Member Linkopane, can you please come to the mic?
Thanks, Chair. Bita is my name, from the Northwest, the chairperson of the Multi-Party Women Caucus. I stand to agree with the presentation that has been put before us as a position of this summit as a collective, and with the view that in the next processes we'll just be dealing with feedback in terms of implementation of everything that we are agreeing upon as a collective here. Thanks, Chair.
I used to have a deputy mayor that said, "Home data." We will go to Prex, Governor.
Thanks very much. Just a small but I think significant point in relation to gender responsive budgeting. Number 6, I'm just going to look at the last point. The GRPBME framework. So just that, the last point, number 6. I'd like to suggest that the sector should look into consulting on the ability of this policy to give effect to constitutional commitment to equality and social justice, and to revise the policy accordingly. So it's quite safe.
Noted.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentleman over there. Is there more? Can we get indication? Is there more people that want to input?
Thank you, Chair. No, Chair, one would like to acknowledge the presentation, and as civil society groups, I think it's a true reflection. I just want to add one, which is one of the items that has been spirited specifically from the perspective of civil society. Looking at social cohesion and moral regeneration as part of ensuring that there is gender equality and gender transformation. because the community participation, I've noted it's there. But if we zoom into outcome 14 of the National Development Plan, says social cohesion, moral regeneration is the driver and the tool towards nation building. So if we can include this, that there can be social cohesion program, that should include, as we had mentioned, as religiously, traditionally, there's still that contradiction with the constitution, which limits some of the inequality, which is also influences the inequality, especially for rural women and also for the society at large. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I think the last point was something that we have discussed. I think it's just maybe an oversight that it was not put into the report. So BITA have actually proposed that, and I think we need to amend the proposal with the inputs that came afterwards. Can we then now have a seconder for that proposal? Judy, thank you. You may.
Thank you very much, Judy Hermans from the National Assembly. I rise to second the adoption of the, I don't know if this is like the summer deck recommendations. In saying that, while going through the document, while the speaker was reading it, I think we need to just relook, because there was in some instances, we are not using a non-binary language. And I think what came out strongly in the inputs was that you're not just speaking about male and female, because there are occasions in the document where we speak about male, and yeah, so that being said, I second the adoption.
Thank you very much. Just as a show that it really is our document, can we do something like this? Sorry for that consultation, but this is now the top administrator in Parliament, and administration assisted us to make sure that there is a budget for that summer. So that means they have a say. But before we conclude and go over to the speaker, I agree with him that we maybe give our guests, the deputy speaker from the Lesotho, as well as the speaker from Mauritius, if at all they want to say something before we conclude. Mauritius is fine, but Lesotho, is there a message that you want to give us from home? Musadi.
Thank you so much, Program Director. Let me pay my respects to you, the Right Honourable Speaker of the National Assembly, as well as the Deputy Speaker who's not with us here. My respects also to the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces and the Deputy Chair, Honourable Speaker of the Mauritius National Assembly. I pay my respects to you as well. To all of you Honourable Speakers of the provinces of South Africa, particularly you, Honourable Speaker of the KwaZulu-Natal. May I, at this juncture, observe all protocol, honourable members, ladies and gentlemen, everybody that's here. Really, I've just been whisked to the podium. I wasn't particularly prepared, but when the invitation came, I felt it was only proper to really come and once again appreciate the invitation that was sent to the Kingdom of Lesotho, represented by myself. Granted, I participated as one of the speakers yesterday, but I really need to affirm that there was so much learning that was done on this platform. I reiterate on my words yesterday. Sometimes we get appointed to these positions, and the understanding is that we know it all. The understanding is that we have all the responses, but it's really not the case. We are just here because we are sent to be representatives of the people, and it's important to always keep that relationship. The activities that have been done here, all the exchanges, there was so much that was informative. I realized that all the speakers that are here, who were here, they were actually appreciating all the content that was being presented. And my hope is that everything that has been said here has not fallen on deaf ears, and there will be transformation. It is the first of the many, and we appreciate, as the Mountain Kingdom of Lesotho, that we have been given this platform because it improves or increases the energy of the relationship that we have with South Africa. We really appreciate everything, and we're looking forward to interacting with you on a similar platform with similar issues, but now with developments in the nearest future. I wish you all in your endeavors as you go back and implement on what we've discussed, because we know that sometimes we attend all these beautiful summits and everything ends where we are. But with this, let's hope is the beginning of the many. Thank you so much for your hospitality. I appreciate. Thank you.
We will now continue, and we will call on our very own Speaker of the National Assembly, Nosi Viwe, should I say Tembi? Ngakula, Mapisa Ngakula, to give the concluding remarks. Speaker. Ikamalama kosikasi malibongwe, ikamalama kosikasi malibongwe, malibongwe. Libongwe malibongwe, ikamalama kosikasi malibongwe, ikamalama kosikasi malibongwe, 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 malibongwe. Thank you. Thank you, Malibongwe. Thank you very much. I seem like a young No, I was just saying to Comrade Sylvia, she sings like an off-row. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Program Director, Deputy Speaker of the NCOP. And thank you to Speaker of the Free State for the summary of the recommendations which were made out of the discussions which we had over the past few days. His Excellency, Mr. It's very difficult to pronounce your name, but I'll give it a try. Sarudev Puker, Speaker of the National Assembly of Mauritius, and Her Excellency Mr. Pang Mosena, the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly of Lesotho. Allow me, colleagues, to acknowledge the presence of, not that other people are not as important, but I do want to acknowledge two people. The Prex governor, Prex is a writer, and I hope that as she writes, she will find time to write her story. We always say, we would say,
It's not about history, it's about her story. We would like you to write about your story, but also about the story of the arrival of women in post-apartheid parliament, and narrate some of the experiences which women had, just for purposes of impacting that knowledge to our children. I find that sometimes it's easy to forget where people come from. I also would like to acknowledge Nozipho. I haven't seen her this morning. Okay. Nozipho Badil, who has been with us, and I'm singling them out because honestly, these are some of the people who have been pushing this agenda of gender mainstreaming, gender equity, equality, and all of the transformative legislation which we needed to pass in order for us to be where we are. You heard Craig saying yesterday, she left Parliament and resigned after it was the arms deal. I think we're going to adopt the arms deal report. There was an issue there. And she felt very strongly that there was no way she could endorse that. She was not agreeing with caucus and was challenging some of the issues, and felt very strongly that the money which was spent on arms is money which should be better utilized to address the socio-economic challenges of the country at the time. Challenges which we continue to have even today. That's the one matter which stands out for me, which I will forever remember. But colleagues, speakers, thank you. Secretaries, Parliament, thank you. Secretaries to the two houses, Advocate Pindela, Mr. Kaso, thank you. I want to thank all of you for the support. You'll recall that we should have had this summit last year, November, if my memory serves me well, but we were not as ready. And I think this is just the perfect timing that we decided to start the month of August with this summit. August being a Women's Month in South Africa. So indeed, Malibongwe igama lamakhosikazi. But I also want to acknowledge the fact that quite a number of speakers of our legislatures are actually women. And I must say, as a new person in this environment, I have felt the support, but I've also felt the push from the women speakers about what it is that they want to see done. And therefore, I feel good about it. I feel that speakers, you have worked very hard. I've also felt it last week. I had an opportunity to travel with some of the speakers to Cameroon, to a forum which really I've never attended before. And I felt the push. I felt the views of the South African women were palpable as you were going through the documents and the discussions of that forum. And those are the women we represent. So thank you very much to you, colleagues. I'm hoping that this is not the last summit we have. I'm hoping that there will be another summit, maybe next year or 2025. But for me, what is important now is that all of us must go back, look at the recommendation, do a deep dive into the recommendations and develop a plan of action so that when we come together, there is a plan of action from each one of the legislatures. There was a lot of criticism, which was very constructive, about how we have been discussing the issues of gender mainstreaming, issues of legislation which is friendly, and issues of women's empowerment, and that we're talking about power to women and not empowerment of women. But also, I also felt that I listened to young, they are very young people who were this side from civil society, I think. And the issues they were raising, I can assure you that the language, even in terms of the gender issues, and I think for many of us, we need to redirect, refocus, and change our thinking and manner of approach to some of these. I've been sitting there very quietly and listening, and I said, yay, I thought I've been part of the women's struggles since time immemorial, but some of the things which I have learned at this particular summit are beyond what I ever imagined. I really thank you for that. I thank you for empowering us. And I thank you for pushing us to speak on behalf of the people of South. The one colleague, there she is with a scarf, actually said, I don't know if you must call it women or female. It's about human. And I thought, yes, it's about human rights. When we talk about the struggles we're involved in, it is all in the name of human rights of the people of South Africa. And this is one thing we need to be very sensitive to, because I could tell the manner in which people were raising these matters. People, at times, I came across as though you were feeling that we are avoiding discussing some of the pertinent issues which confront you on a daily basis. I want to say we were not avoiding those, but what I can assure you about is that we have learned a lot here. But I think, Auntie, your province is very dynamic, because I know that majority of the young people I was talking to are coming from this province. But you know, in the evening yesterday, I had dinner with some lady teachers from here. So I talked about Umakaula and the issue she was raising about toilets, pollution facilities at schools. And then how we ended up that discussion. And the lady is big, one of the ladies is as big as myself. So she says, you know what, Speaker, let me tell you something. When you enter our pollution facilities in my school where I teach, actually the floor and the seat literally shake. So I asked her, but why do you continue using? Don't use it. And she says, do I have a choice? But what I'm saying is, these are some of the small things we think that they are not as important, but they matter, man. That in a work environment, that you cannot have proper access and privacy in a pollution facility. So I just thought, and indeed, because the matter was raised very strongly, it is a matter that we need to look into. The issue of, and I think this was raised by young men, sanitary towels, availability thereof, and how you walk into a public pollution facility and you'll find condoms, but you will not find sanitary towels. And I think this is something which we always say, no, you discuss, but it was a reality which was put here at a national summit by a young man. And I think it's something which we should take very seriously, because I really thought that the young people who are attending this summit really provoked us. They provoked our thinking, and therefore we have an obligation in the plan of action as the legislature to come out with ways of following up on some of the issues. They say, yes, you've been talking about this women's emancipation, gender, whatever, empowerment, and then they go on, and then they say, but in terms of monitoring and evaluation of whether government is taking seriously some of the decisions which have been taken by other summits, they feel that as the legislature, we are not doing enough. So my appeal to all of us is that let's have this plan of action from all the provinces, go back, let's have a discussion. But also I think before we go on campaigning, because we are preparing for the election now, we need, as the sector, to come together and look at what is coming out from this and look at that plan of action. Because whatever it is that we are doing now, we are now preparing for the 7th Parliament. Those who will come in after us should be able to take forward the decisions of this summit. They must take them forward. I think that's what I would like to say. You know, we are now attending, a number of us will be attending, who are here now, tomorrow we'll be attending a discussion on the coalition governments. It's a summit in Stellenbosch, where it will be multi-party and civil society in the main. And I was thinking this morning, what is it that we want to come out of that? We talking coalitions, but even as we talk coalitions, there's such a lot of confusion around that particular issue. And you can rest assured that if women, and those of you who are here today who have been part of these discussions do not drive that process, I'm telling you, we are likely to end up with a situation that's going to take us some steps back rather than moving forward, even with regards to some of these decisions which we've taken here. So my appeal is that there will be commissions, because you're aware. Let's engage in those commissions as much as is possible, so that whatever monster emerges out of this thing we are going to be dealing with for the next 2 days, that monster needs to understand that there are communities out there which are crying for their rights. So I think that that is what I would like to say. It is not my intention, chairperson, to go through a speech and repeat some of the issues which have been raised, which we have discussed, and try to summarize. I think Honorable Sfuba has done it very well. What is important is for us to commit. We commit, we must commit. We must commit, but we must also walk the talk. Because the biggest problem in us is that we do not walk the talk. We talk, but we don't move. I mean, that's the truth, guys, and we must accept that our legislatures, starting with Parliament, there is a lot which we have not followed up on, which was started by the likes of Comrade Prex Govender. The issue of gender budgeting, yeah, you can tell, I can see it, Secretary to Parliament, and
secretary of the NA and the NCOP, there is what we call the budget office now in Parliament, which is a new entity which was not there before. Yeah. That budget office should assist us we have a capacity, in other words, which has been created for us to do some. The fact that we have that office, which is a new office now, it actually allows for us to do a deep dive into the budgets which we are passing every day. There was a drama, I'll call it drama, around March, when we're going through the budgets and so on. And there's a committee which did not want to pass budget of a particular department. And we were all up in arms and negotiating that, no, you have to, no, but this is the problem. It starts with us, that some colleagues in a committee make an observation that, yeah, there is a problem, or there may be a problem. And then because we want to pass the overall budget of government for government to continue functioning, we then become the ones who persuade, engage, please pass this budget. And these are the issues which are being raised. What budget do you pass? What is it for? What impact does it have on the lives of ordinary people, on the socio-economic challenges we've had, which we continue to have, on the lives of the women of South Africa? So I think that budget office should assist us to deal with some of these issues. And I think that next year will be 30 years of a democratic parliament. So we have no reasons, as we are preparing and laying the basis for the 7th parliament, we have no reasons for the 7th parliament not to take forward some of these decisions, because we've laid the ground. So people will have to come in and just do what is necessary and report back to this summit. I thank you all, colleagues, for your active, robust participation in this summit. I thank all of you from the different legislatures, from part of the civil society, faith-based, moral regeneration group. Thank you very much for being part of this meeting. Speaker of Mauritius, thank you. Thank you for honoring us with your presence. You know, this was a last-minute thought that we should invite some of you to be part of this summit. Remember, we were in Cameroon, and when people heard that we'll be having this summit, people showed interest, and we decided that we should extend this. I know that there's a lot which you have learned here, and I am also looking forward to have a team from the legislative sector to visit your parliament, to see some of the work which you are doing, which I've become aware of from your secretary behind you. So I would like us to continue to engage and keep this contact, because the struggle we are engaged in is a long one. When we used to theorize about it and say, triple oppression of women, political, it's a long one. It's going to be a long journey for all of us, and this we need to. Speaker from Lesotho, I must say that I was very impressed by your presentations and the honesty with which you approach issues, the ability to accept that through the parliamentary forum, for instance, of women, SADC Parliamentary Forum, you've learned ABCDNE, and you are a new party in Lesotho, And I am sure this has empowered you to redirect focus of the Parliament of. Thank you very much for honoring us with your presence. And I must say that we were really impressed by I like the honesty. I always prefer being honest about issues and acknowledge if I don't know something, say, listen, I don't know this one, but I think I'm ready to listen and learn from it. So thank you. Thank you very much. Secretaries, enkosi, starting from you and the Teti Siwe, shame, Siwe. I think there was a time when you were almost going, I think I was sometimes hard. But thank you. It is because we all wanted this to be a success. Thank you very much. Thank you for the hard work, all of you colleagues. Speaker from KZN, speaker from, secretary from KZN, from the Eastern Cape, all of you. I see Northern Cape, Dochile. Pumalanga is still here. That's the problem about taking the podium, because then you are able to see, okay, this one is gone and that one is still there. So, Free State is still here. Of course, I cannot chance you one, but because the speaker is still here. So, colleagues, thank you very much. For those of you who are traveling, who are proceeding to Cape Town for this national dialogue, God help us what it will come out with. But thank you. Ngikuthandile speaker waseLimpopo indlela osmart ngayo xa usasetha when you were with Chokamandi and with ndakunqwenela uba ngasi kube kulaa ndawo ndikuyo. You have a way of dealing with issues. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you very much. The chairpersons of the committees, how can you be the last to be acknowledged? Thank you, Honorable Frolik Akbare. Thank you, Honorable Nyambi. Akbare Nyambi. Thank you very much. Because you make things happen. If you didn't want these committees to be here, they wouldn't be here. So thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you.
That's why I can stand here so that you don't think. Thank you very much, Speaker. And any one of you that feel the Speaker haven't thanked you, I'm thanking you in deputy. Can we request that the Secretary of KZN, Ms. Naidu, join us on stage, but also the Speaker of Mauritius and the Deputy Speaker of Lesotho. Do you want to join us on stage, please? Please. The Secretary will hand over this gift to the Speaker of the Free State, Mem Sifuba, as well as our Speaker of Parliament, or of the National Assembly of Parliament, Speaker Mapisa Ngakula. So, and after that, I will ask the Speaker to hand over gifts to our own guests. Will receive your gift and then you will give to guests. Okay.
Thank you.
And just send yes. Why don't you stand for a pic with everyone? I just want to while Speaker is busy, people, if you didn't get a gift, you didn't get a gift. I just want to thank those that are responsible for gifting. Speaker, I got the gift, man. Thank you.
Because you just depends on how do you take it.
The Speaker of Free State doesn't know that when you have the power in your hands, you use it. You shouldn't allow power to lie around. Before we conclude, and I don't know, is there any housekeeping arrangements, Sive? Because we must be out of this hotel by 11 o'clock unless you have made arrangements for late departure like myself. Is it all? Is it all? I'm not in the photo, so please sit down. Thank you, thank you. Can we just make the announcements? Checkout is at 11. So what must happen is possibly you must first check out, but there is tea outside and some refreshments. Lunch will be at 12 at the Copper Restaurant. So after that, the only thing that remains is to say, af wedersehen. Tot ons weer ontmoet. Until we meet again. Nangam so. That is what we have to say to all of you. Thank you. But I still want the AU anthem. Sive, I want the AU anthem. I want, before we leave here, I want the AU anthem. So, KwaZulu Natal, you don't have it. Sorry? Can we rise and sing the national anthem and after that the EU anthem? That will be our final prayer. Kosi Sikileli Africa. That will be our final prayer. En dan soek jy die remixie, ons sing self, ons kan sing. Ons sing, ons soek die remixie, ons sing. Kosi Sikileli Africa, malupakan Isu Bonalwayo, Iswani Mitanda so Yechi, Kosi Sikela Tina Lusapol Burena buluka si chava sa Yesu, ufedi se dintoli matswenye, sibuluke si chava sa Yesu, si chava. South Africa, South Africa. Hey, die blauw van onze hemel, hey, die diepte van ons zee, waar ons waar die kranse antwoord gee. Songs the call to come together and united we shall stand. Let us live and strive you very much. Wasn't it beautiful? Thank you.
Special delivery.
Serious, sorry, photo.